Welcome to Canadian Justice. I'm Christine Van Gyn, and today we're talking about sanctions on Russia by Canada, as well as sanctions Russia has imposed in retaliation, and what these sanctions mean for Canadian citizens and businesses. On February 24th, Russia began a military invasion of Ukraine, launching attacks on multiple cities. The war has been devastating, with mounting evidence that the Russian military has committed war crimes and crimes against humanity. Canada has imposed sanctions in response that, for example, impose an asset freeze and prohibits dealings with individuals and entities, imposes restrictions on certain sectors like financial and energy sectors in Russia. It also lists certain individuals as inadmissible to Canada and prohibits the export, sale, or supply of certain goods to Russia. Russia has retaliated by imposing their own sanctions on Canadian individuals, including politicians, journalists, and soldiers. Here today to discuss this issue are three experts. Sean Stevenson is a lawyer with Dentons, Marcus Kolga is a senior fellow with the Macdonald-Laurier Institute, and Matthew Light is a professor at the University of Toronto. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Marcus, I'd like to start with you. There are a lot of sanctions that Canada has imposed. Can you walk me through who some of the individuals are that have been sanctioned by the Canadian government and what the sanctions mean for them?
Well, sure. Thanks for having me on, Christine. And I'm actually one of those Canadians who's been placed on Vladimir Putin's sanctions list about 3 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. As far as Canadian sanctions on Russians, there are about 1,400 individuals right now that have been placed onto Canada's sanctions list. Most of those have been placed on the sanctions list over the past 2 months. And they run the gamut from minor officials in eastern Ukraine, in Russian-occupied Ukraine, all the way up to Vladimir Putin's own daughters and Vladimir Putin himself. At the top of those lists, and the oligarchs that are important to Canada, Roman Abramovich is at the top of that list. It's reported that he personally nominated Vladimir Putin to be the successor to Boris Yeltsin in the late 1990s. He, of course, was the former owner of Chelsea Football Club and is known as Russia's leading metals magnet, steel magnet. In the mid-2000s, he bought 5 steel processing plants right here in Canada for an estimated cost of around $2.3 billion. And that value has grown over the years. And so having Abramovich on that sanctions list is very important. And he's also being named by Alexei Navalny, the well-known Russian anti-corruption crusader, as the most important Russian oligarch that can be sanctioned by the West. And there are a number of other leading Putin oligarchs who are on that list as well. So Canada has really followed its allies in placing these names on that list, and there's still a lot more that Canada could be doing as far as sanctions are concerned.
Now, Sean, there are some industries that have been sanctioned as well. So, what can you tell me about industry-wide sanctions? What industries they apply to, and what they mean?
Sure, and thanks for having me on, Christine. A pleasure to be here. As you mentioned at the top of the introduction, Canada's sanctions have been focused on finance, energy, and defense. I would note that sanctions relating to finance and energy were pre-existing the current the current events that started at the end of February, but those have been significantly scaled up. So in terms of finance, what we've seen is a significant amount of designations of Russian banks. We've also seen the designation of the Russian Central Bank, as well as the Ministry of Finance, so that puts a significant curb on doing finance or banking transactions in Russia. In terms of energy, we've seen, of course, the ban of imports on petroleum products and some other listed products in the Canadian sanctions regulations. And then in terms of defense, we've again seen a significant listing of a number of Russian defense players on Canada's sanctions list. So what this means is a broad ban in dealing with those individuals and those entities. So if you are a Canadian or any person in Canada, you are essentially prohibited from dealing with those folks.
So, Professor Light, I'm gonna ask the question now. I'm gonna give you time to answer it in the next segment because we're running up against the clock. But I want to know how the sanctions really fit in to Canada's broader goal of helping Ukraine, helping the people of Ukraine. Canada's doing a lot in terms of aid, in terms of allowing Ukrainians to come here. But I want to know how the sanctions fit into that broader goal. We've got to go to commercial, but I want your thoughts on that when we come back.
Very good.